It's louder for me. Maybe I'm just loud. But
You are just
Maybe you're just loud.
We can all be loud. Welcome, everybody, to Beyond the Cinema. I am Spencer.
I'm Tyler.
And I'm Ethan.
Yes, today we are going to be talking about a movie that we saw last night.
Probably the last movie that the world will ever see.
Yeah,
As we
probably.
enter
Because of
the
the Zika
apocalypse.
virus.
It's all over the news, the Zika virus.
As we enter the apocalypse.
That's right. So today we're going to be talking about BLOODSHOT. Woo, Vin Diesel, yeah.
That was such an energetic intro for such a not energetic movie.
I know.
Yeah.
I tried to give it a little bit more just to cut some slack, but there's no slack to be cut. So.
Tyler said it best when he said, "Last night we all bought energy drinks and pounded them, and we found ourselves fading." We were like,
I genuinely,
oh,
it was a struggle to stay awake, and I was like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, I was worried about not being able to sleep tonight.
Yeah.
so it's the greatest lullaby ever made.
One of them, yeah, I think so. So should we even bother with worrying about spoilers, or should we
Oh,
just...
well,
There's nothing
I
really
think-
spoilery.
I don't think
the
there's-
trailer spoils.
Not like spoilery, but I think
Yeah.
we kind of like, we'll give it like a review
Okay.
rating, and then just talk about parts that we liked and didn't
Okay.
like.
All right.
So like,
Yeah.
okay,
Going barstool sports method. I like it.
yeah, okay.
Cool,
so
cool.
it's such a mediocre. It's not even a superhero movie. It's supposed to be, but it's not.
It
Yeah,
reminded
it's
me
not.
more of Alita Battle Angel than it did of a superhero movie.
Oh, we're still watching that one right now.
Oh yeah, you're in the middle of that
yeah,
right
we can't
now.
agree. We didn't
Literally
see
right
it
now,
all
we
the way through
paused
yet.
it to film this review.
Big eyes.
But yeah, it's just so lackluster and
It is.
predictable, and you
It's
know
got some decent visuals to it, but
Yeah.
that's about where it ends.
they abuse slow motion and speed.
They do.
really
shaky
do.
cams
It's
so
like
bad.
it's like Zack Snyder's wet dream. It's just like so much slow mo.
Yes, absolutely.
It's so much slow mo.
Because I remember like the beginning of the movie of the bit with the grenade blowing up, the flash grenade, and I'm like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was cool. That was
And
a
then
cool
the rest
shot.
of the movie, I was like, what's happening?
Yeah.
and that's the thing is this movie represents the duality of man, or it represents like the two sides to every story. There is incredibly long and frequent slow mo, or there is violent epileptic shaky cam. There's
Just
no in
both.
between. It's either filmed by a tortoise or it's filmed by a guy on a rodeo bull. Just like that is the only two options.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I've never heard of the story of BLOODSHOT ever, and
Yeah.
so when I first like, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes of the movie, I was intrigued because it's an idea I haven't heard of before. It's an idea I hadn't heard before, and so I was like, okay, well maybe this could go somewhere nice, but then it just stayed so bland the rest of the movie. I was really disappointed.
That's a great word to describe it.
Yeah.
What a wonderful descriptive word. Bland.
Yeah.
It's,
It's inconsistent quite a bit too, and I'll talk more about this when we get into the spoiler territory. But like, it doesn't follow its own rules, like with how his whole nanobots things works.
Yeah, it's very unpredictable.
He's bald, which I don't enjoy, and reminds me of my dad. And
personal critique there.
it's still a critique. You ever met a bald person? They typically aren't good.
All right.
But it's even beyond that, the most defining trait and the most redeemable part of the movie, and they know this, is that Eiza Gonzalez is literally the most perfect human I've ever seen in my life. I Googled her promptly after following the movie. and that tab is still open on my phone. I had a rough day today, and I looked at those pictures quite a bit. And
Yeah,
that
I think
she is just stone cold, man. It is. It's pretty great.
Yeah, after leaving the theater, I think it was safe to say that you were smitten.
Yeah,
And
I
you wouldn't stop talking about it.
I am for marriage, man. That is coming.
Yep.
I can't believe I took a picture of Chris Pratt to prom when I should have brought her.
okay, well, man, That's honestly all we have to talk about with this movie. Like,
I
genuinely,
mean, it is.
the action is mediocre. The story is more mediocre.
Yeah.
The acting is mediocre.
Bland.
The only thing that isn't mediocre is Eiza Gonzalez's stone cold looks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Like, it's just a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It definitely, like, it's a movie that came out in theaters and you can pay money to watch
Yeah.
it, but
A guy sticks gum on a lot of things.
Yeah.
yeah, so
The more you know. Okay, let's go ahead
yeah,
and
no,
move on
let's
to
rate it.
ratings.
Like, I'm gonna say stream it just above skip it because of the sole purpose that I feel like this is the kind of movie where, like, you just come back from a long day at Disneyland on a family trip and you're like scrolling through HBO and you just see this and you
Yeah.
watch it.
Yeah.
That's what this movie is. Like,
Yeah.
it is that was like, oh yeah, that's a movie, right?
It's a tired
Yeah.
boredom movie, yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'd stream it maybe.
Yeah. 100% in agreement there. I'm also stream it, and yeah. Same,
If I would honestly label it a skip it if it wasn't for the fact that Eiza Gonzalez transcends sexuality and is literally attractive to quite possibly anyone.
Probably
So stream
animals as well.
Honestly, yeah. My dog would probably start getting a little uncomfortable if I showed him the movie. He'd be like, well, my. But that's a conversation for a later time.
Much
Off
later.
air.
Much later. Anyways, so are we gonna
But
move
it's
into
free stream it. Yeah?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
we'll just talk
stream
about the dumb parts of the movie because there aren't
Yeah.
any good ones to talk about.
There's no, not
I mean,
really.
I thought the color palette was kind of cool. It's very Godzilla 2014.
Yeah.
That's it.
I
I mean,
felt
that's
like-
fair.
okay,
Yeah, that's fair.
The one takeaway from this whole movie was that concussion grenade. So there's like, it shows him as a soldier right at the beginning, and
Yeah.
he throws a concussion grenade through the door. And imagine a concussion grenade flying
Yeah,
right between their heads and then blowing up right here.
Yeah, and you see their faces.
Yeah,
jiggle with
like
it, yeah.
I've always wondered, like I've never wondered what that would look like, but now after seeing it, I'm like, man, yeah, like that's
pretty cool.
that's pretty cool. Like that's what a concussion grenade does. So that's all I got from this movie.
And the
Yeah.
only other cool slow-mo scenes you get are already in the trailer. Like the one where he gets hit with the grenade and his face starts to blow off and you see like his skull like underneath his skin and
Yeah.
then the muscle starts kind of growing back on and then he comes back.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like that shot's really cool, but they
That's-
already spoiled it.
Well, that's
so.
the only shot. There are two shots in this whole movie of him as
Reforming.
Bloodshot. Like
yeah.
that's the purpose of the character.
And not to mention every time it takes so long. Like every time he did it, I was like,
Yeah, it's so true. Like you're watching it like
yeah,
like
you're watching all the little nanobots fly off the
Especially-
ground, and then you watch them one by one go back to him, and
Especially
it's
at
like,
the beginning.
it feels like I'm watching this in live time, man.
Especially at the beginning when he like slices open his hand, it takes like 30 years for that cut to heal. You know,
Like,
wow.
it's like,
okay.
wow, it healed in just the amount of time it would take to actually heal from that cut.
Yeah, honestly.
And on top of that, like what I was saying with the inconsistency is that they keep talking about how the nanobots need to be refueled-ish.
Yeah,
but
recharged
like
or
also they
something.
immediately inject them into him again. And I'm like, oh, that was a fast recharging time. But then, so we get that. But then, like at the end, and they say they replaced his blood.
yeah.
Like they do the function of his blood, and that is how like whenever
they
it gets
are
cut or
your
broken,
blood.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that is why when whenever he gets cut, like they can just flush to the surface and restitch his skin together and all that good stuff. But the thing is at the end of the movie, he drains all his nanobots out of him, and the bad guy all of a sudden is like, now you're just insert generic white guy name here, and
Ray
he grabs him
something.
by the throat, and he's like, and that's enough. And it's like, wait a second, don't you have no blood?
Aren't you
Yeah.
literally a corpse?
You should
be
literally an
dead.
empty thing. Like it's like I'm not a medical professional, but I don't think you can survive with zero blood.
And then on top of that, he takes a freaking grenade from a grenade launcher to the body.
And then they just put him back together.
and then
They're
he's
like, "It's
perfectly
good."
fine. He's
Yeah.
okay. I'm like,
Without any scars. They
Okay,
just are
listen.
like what did they grab like a tiny piece of skin that was just
Yeah.
like stuck to a window and go
yeah.
inject it with the nanobots and then
And
they're
then,
like, oh, we got
He's
this.
good.
Like,
He's there. Yeah. It didn't make sense to me
is he a
because I can
single
understand.
cell organism? Like
Yeah. his fleshy parts were all over the street.
He's
I
just
don't get it.
reproducing asexually.
Oh, of course.
He's budding.
That's why the bald head.
Of
Again,
course.
He splits off into another one.
But-
His head is actually an ovum.
But yeah, I think my one actual like honest thought about this movie, because I think the plot would still be a mess, the acting would still be mediocre, but this as like on an entertainment value would have benefited so much from an R rating.
Yeah.
Because there's so like the idea and concept of Bloodshot, it's similar to when Deadpool gets hurt and then like is able to fix himself. It's just not as like visceral or shocking or like whoa when you only do it once because it's PG-13.
And every like cool or unique death you have after that, you censor basically. Like you talked about the one where he's trying to bust into that armored convoy, and so he actually grabs a knocked out guy and pulls the pin on one of the grenades and slaps him against the windshield and holds him there so that it blows the convoy up.
Yeah.
And it also acts as kind of a shield.
And they
for
both
him.
just go flying back.
Yeah, and they both go, and the guy, as a whole, with no visible injuries, goes pew like that.
Yeah. Well, it's just because like
He looks like Kirby when he gets knocked off screen.
because again, like I think Bloodshot as a character, it's that idea that it's like I can't be hurt, so I can do whatever I want. I can pull a grenade and hold it in my hand and hold it against your chest, kind of thing, because I'm gonna be okay. And like you can really make for some really visceral, really cool action.
It's like,
but that's completely missing because it's PG-13.
It's like you said. It's kind of like how, I mean, they specifically said in Deadpool. Sometimes you'll notice he literally lets himself get hurt because it's unpredictable and it allows him to gain the advantage. So like in the fight in Deadpool 2 when he's fighting Cable, Cable breaks his arm, and so he uses his broken arm to whip around him and chokehold him from behind with his broken arm and act it as like a rope. So it lets you do cool stuff with it, but it's R-rated stuff. And so in this one, they're like, he sometimes gets put back together. And it's like, oh, wow, he turns into a red and gray cloud for 45 minutes, and then all of a sudden he's bald again.
Well, and it's like even that bit with the grenade, like I've never like felt like a movie as accurately represented a person getting blown up by a grenade until Birds of Prey. And then I was like, that is exactly what it would look like.
Yeah.
And I just think like Vin Diesel wouldn't have been okay either, even if the guy was there. Like you should have shown Vin Diesel get blown apart and then come back together and like how cool of a scene would that have been if he held the guy against him, the guy blows into a billion pieces, and so does Vin Diesel, and then he just comes back and then opens the door.
Also, I'm sorry, but now that I think about it, they could have done the reform scene so much cooler looking. Just based off that one where it blows off part of his face and then reforms. It would have been so cool in that shot if like all of a sudden you see like his skeleton like there, like in chunks, like starting to click back into place, and then the rest forms the cloud around him and builds off that. That would have been so much cooler than what we saw, where it's basically him going with like black eyes and like an ET heart in his chest. Like it was just
and it just comes down to like I remember watching the trailer for this forever ago and thinking, oh, they're actually doing gore in this one because we got that shot of it coming off of their face. I was like, oh, cool. Like, they're actually doing it. They didn't.
Plus, the name Bloodshot just screams rated R.
The two shots you saw in the trailer of his face and the part where he's just walking with all the pieces coming back to him, that's it. That's all you see the whole movie.
Yeah.
Like, the entire thing.
Besides my violent heart palpitations for Yaisa Gonzalez.
Anyways, so I had something that I came out of that movie with, and it was really, really sad because I was mentioning it to them in the car, but I feel like this movie totally contradicted itself because he starts out being controlled to act out of revenge and kill people. And so now that he's actually free and able to do anything he wants, he's no longer under anyone's control. He decides to act on revenge and kill people. It's like, what was this? What?
Yeah, there's no character growth.
There was none whatsoever. He's still exactly
If anything, he
I
declines.
just know more things.
If anything, he declines as a character. I liked him more when it was the dream of him as a soldier.
Yeah.
Than when he actually was like.
That's right. He's definitely gotten worse as a character.
And you mentioned this. It's such a small nitpick and criticism, but like we got like 4 minutes, so.
So let's do this.
But Vin Diesel's whisper is hella weird, man. Like,
oh yeah.
like he has this, he has that deep like, we're family, always sort of voice.
We're family.
We're family. And it's like, softcore Stallone. And then he whispers, and all of a sudden he's just like, I don't even know where you are.
That was so good.
That was really good. You did a good job.
That was so good.
Like, he's like, I told you I always come home. It's like,
yeah, that's exactly how it was.
it was the first time, like, and this is saying something where in the movie I was like, Diesel, lay off the roids, bub. Like,
Yeah, I thought
what
like,
was that, Elmo?
I legit thought it was part of the film, like the nanobots and his vocal cords were off or something, but the guy on the screen wasn't laughing. I'm like, wait, that's his voice.
Whenever he whispers, he just kind of sounds like Marge Simpson, and that's a thing. Like,
Oh man,
It's-
yeah, it was.
it's so, and he does it a lot of times.
Actually,
Yeah.
okay. So I will say, and this is like we don't have enough time, a lot of time. I was impressed by his range in that scene a little bit when he's yelling at the guy in the simulation
I thought the same thing.
Yeah,
because
I thought the
he
same
is so monotone in
He
everything
is,
that he
yes.
does.
Every single movie.
And so that was a little bit of range. His
Yeah.
voice sounded weird at points, but at least he was like
Yeah.
giving that his all. I will
Yeah.
give him that.
I
Yeah,
gotta say
that's
the
true.
same. I also thought the same thing. I was like, oh, that was pretty good in the first wife death scene, with the dude like dancing up to him and stuff,
Yeah.
and he's like, I will find you, and he's screaming, and it's kind of a John Wick-esque scene.
yeah.
I did think during that I was like, that
Yeah.
shit wasn't bad.
That's true.
Like,
And then he just goes back to being monotone.
And then he's like,
movie.
Yeah.
but anyways,
I always come home.
I always come home. It's like, dude.
No, but kudos to him. I mean, for at least trying to be good in this
he
movie,
gave
you
it
know?
his all,
He really did.
but unfortunately that was in his own words. Oh wait, no, he said that's enough. I was gonna say that's not enough.
Oh, okay.
But that quote doesn't work.
No.
That's not enough. It's not a good movie.
Yeah.
Nah.
Yeah.
So
Nah.
We stand by.
I
what we
mean,
said.
okay, beyond even me finding her attractive, I did think Ieza Gonzalez was good in the movie. I liked her. For
You really
many
liked her?
reasons.
the hacker guy was
No
annoying
way.
AF, man.
What? What?
The hacker guy was annoying AF.
Oh, Wiggins.
he
my man?
sucked.
Yeah, Wiggins.
Worst part of that movie, man.
He
Maybe
really
it was
was
just
too.
thanks to
He had just
Wiggins.
an endless supply of noodles.
Oh, that's something else
but-
I wanted to... I'm just
We-
going to
we
say
don't-
this
we
real
don't-
quick, I
okay.
promise.
I'd say we've got
But-
a minute 30.
Most of the jokes in this movie, in my opinion, were very middle school jokes
Mhm.
and didn't land. Just saying. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. I did like them in this movie. Like, I liked Vin Diesel in this movie more than I usually like him. I liked Ieza Gonzalez. But beyond all that, like you said, it's just it's a flat movie.
It's bland. Yeah.
It's pretty bland. It's pretty white bread. So,
Yeah.
you know,
It is.
So
do what you will with this information. It's a great
Yeah.
way to celebrate the coronavirus taking over our lives
yeah, I
and
know. Like,
canceling movies.
we were supposed to be seeing A Quiet Place in 3 days, but now we're not. So I don't know
Now we're
what we're
seeing
gonna talk
it in
about
a
next week.
year.
That's right.
So we'll have some kind of movie to like. It probably will be like similar to Godzilla. We'll do like a rewind review kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like
I'm thinking we
Probably.
go back classic. this
Yeah,
week.
yeah, we
watch-
could do that, absolutely.
pick something interesting, but there's no movies coming out. Guaranteed in March. Maybe
Maybe we'll start to get some in
Yeah.
April.
Yeah, if any of you have suggestions, leave them in the comments.
Please do.
Please
Yeah.
do. So yeah, along with the comments, go ahead, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, do all the classic YouTuber stuff. And thank you for going with us.
beyond the cinema.
I hit myself in the eye.